Well, welcome to the water cooler. Might be a bit of a surprise. I'm actually not David Brody. I'm Eric Greitens, but I'm really happy to be stepping in. Don't we all want to be David Brody at some point in our lives? Well, today I get to pretend that I'm David Brody, and it's fun to start the water cooler with a fantastic, really important story that's out. You have to go check it out right now at justthenews.com. It's big. Impeachment blunder. The author of a tweet that was introduced at the trial says that it was falsified and misinterpreted. Well, the author of that story is none other than the founder and editor-in-chief of justthenews.com, John Solomon, and he's right here with us in studio. John, this is a big, big story.
Yeah, some of the people I've talked with in the last half hour say this is like the O.J. Simpson glove doesn't fit moment at the trial. Why is that, Eric? There was a moment at the trial where they're introducing tweets yesterday. There's two women who tweeted that they tweeted at President Trump, we're bringing the cavalry, and then Trump retweeted them. And the congressman that was there at the time said, this is proof, irrefutable proof that the president was endorsing a military-style assault on the Capitol, violence. There's only one problem. I wish those congressmen had a dictionary, because here's why. They didn't use the word cavalry, C-A-V-A-L-R-Y, which is a military brigade on horses. They use C-A-L-V-A-R-Y, which is the Christian word for the crucifixion, the hill where Jesus was carried.
Yes.
I reached out to one of the women. I finally got them. Her name is Jennifer Lawrence. She says, I wasn't talking about a military brigade. I was talking about a prayer meeting we were going to have in Washington. This got completely misinterpreted. And then she raises another question, which is, when my tweet showed up on screen, it had a blue check next to it, meaning I'm a verified, influential Twitter user. I've never been verified. I don't have a blue check. Go to my site. So the tweet was not only doctored, it was completely misinterpreted. And this is going to be a serious moment. You're probably going to see the president's lawyers, certainly some of the jurors come out and say, can you get your story right? Words matter. Facts matter.
Yes, words matter and facts matter, and this is a blunder of epic proportions. I mean, this is the House impeachment manager charging the President of the United States of America, saying that he wanted to bring the cavalry, which of course, as all of our viewers know, is an armed force mounted on horseback that would be coming into Washington. That's what they're charging the president with, that he was going to bring in the cavalry. But what actually happened is that these were people who were engaging in prayer.
Yeah.
And they said they're bringing the cavalry, which, as you mentioned, the Calvary Hill is the hill just outside the walls of Jerusalem where Jesus was crucified. There are lots of Calvary churches across America. So they were coming to pray.
Yes.
And the House impeachment manager says they were coming armed and ready for violence.
I asked this woman, listen, did you ever intend violence? Did you have any IADs you were building? Any batons, any riot gear? I said, no, I brought a Bible, some pastors, and we had a prayer meeting. She wasn't even at the Capitol the day of the riot. She was at a hotel. She was watching just as upset as everyone else when they saw the terrible violence.
Yes.
She doesn't condone violence. She has an incredible character witness, too. Her pastor gets on, Brian Gibson. He comes on and he says, John, I was with her the moment she sent it. I said, are you using the right word? She said, yeah, I'm referring to Jesus, the crucifixion. I'm not talking about a military brigade. So she brings a corroborating witness. Here's the big thing.
Yes.
There's a rule in criminal one-on-one prosecution.
Yes.
Never ask a question and never bring a witness if you don't know what they're going to say. The House impeachment managers presented these tweets yesterday. They never reached out to Jennifer Lawrence. They never asked her what her story was, what she meant. They didn't even check the spelling of the word. They could have, if they just had a Webster's dictionary, they would have been fine. Big, big blunder. I think you're going to see a blowback on this. I'm hearing from a lot of people, lawyers, senators, congressmen have been calling since this story broke. This is going to have some impact.
Well, what's really incredible about this also is that if you were a fifth grader and you were given an assignment. If you were a fifth grader given an assignment and you had to write a report, and back in my day before the internet, when you went to World Book and Encyclopedia Britannica, you'd open it up, you'd check your source.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the House impeachment manager.
Yeah, we don't
the biggest stage in the world, charging the President of the United States with a crime, and they don't even bother to check their source.
Yeah, they don't.
They didn't even use a dictionary.
Yep.
It's really striking, and I think it suggests, perhaps, we don't know, but it certainly looks to people like this is an incredibly sloppy prosecution. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit, we've talked about cavalry and Calvary, but it sounds like they also falsified the user of the tweet and actually said that she had a blue check mark. Talk with our viewers about what that means and why it matters.
When you're a blue check mark verified user, it means you're a heavyweight on Twitter. You got some juice.
You're
Twitter
a John Solomon.
Well,
you're a guy,
I'm not even blue check. I didn't even get a blue check. But you're real Donald Trump.
Yes.
You're real Jack Dorsey, or you're a Hollywood figure.
Right.
This woman had, a few thousand followers, but putting the blue check on there showing that she and Trump were both blue check folks meant that they were big heavyweights. They had influence. When this went out, it really influenced people. She said, I'm just a little person who did Twitter. I'm just a Christian who was on a bus going to Washington to throw a prayer meeting. And I think that sort of sloppiness, that sort of exaggeration, we've seen it many times, right? We saw it all through Russia. We found out that, Carter Page was supposed to be a spy. Turns out he was a CIA asset, not a Russian spy.
Right.
Christopher Steele didn't have anything verified. The FBI didn't have anything verified. This exaggeration to slam Donald Trump is a recurring theme in all of the accusations that have been made. And listen, if Donald Trump did something wrong, if there are facts to back it up, if there are witnesses to back it up, then bring it. Facts matter, words matter. These guys blew through the words, the meaning, and they didn't do their basic homework like that fifth grader.
They didn't do their basic homework. And let's also think about who was doing this. If I'm right, it was Eric Swalwell who was actually making these charges, who, as Just the News has reported, he was one of the folks who was pushing the entire Russia collusion narrative for years. That same narrative which you and your team at Just the News have reported on so extensively, for which there was no factual basis. You've reported that Christopher Steele himself, who was the basis for the whole Russia collusion hoax, said that the whole idea of it was to distract from Hillary Clinton's email scandal. But the point is that Eric Swalwell, the guy who pushed the Russia collusion hoax, is now telling these same lies, certainly looks that way, falsehoods about the president about the president of the United States. And let's also say this, we're going to be talking with the pastor in a moment. He's not only attacking the president of the United States, he's actually putting a woman who came to Washington, D.C. to pray, and he's putting her in the international spotlight and accusing her of coming to incite.
Jennifer Lawrence told me in the podcast today that within a few hours of Swalwell putting her name on national television, showing her tweet, she began to get security threats, had to go hire a security detail. She's in hiding right now because of the danger to her personal security. That's why words matter, why facts matter, why responsibility of prosecutors are to get their facts before they present it to the jury. There are other consequences beyond just making a faux pas in the middle of a trial. It's that real lives and reputations get ruined this way. When I talked to her, she has a very strong Christian belief, and she said to me, one of the things that strikes me is that you have all of these people telling us how to live in America, government officials, and they don't even know the basis of Calvary, which, a lot of Christians in America, they know what a Calvary is. They know that's where Christ died on the cross. And she felt offended that he could so easily misinterpret that to mean a military thing. And I think that gets to a larger disconnect. It's why Donald Trump came to power in the beginning. There were so many Americans that didn't think government, political elites, media elites understood their life, their faith, their needs, their questions. Their voices weren't heard. And I think that this event is a small event that speaks a large volume about the disconnect between real people in America and what the elites in Washington are doing every day.
Well, and it suggests how real people are hurt. In this instance, like a woman who came to Washington, D.C. in prayer, I didn't know this, that she's actually in hiding. And for folks who want, they can get all of the details of your conversation with them on John Solomon Reports, which is your podcast. They can go to justthenews.com, hear your entire conversation with them. And I encourage everybody to do that. But she is hurt by this. Her family is hurt by this. And I think it also just speaks to a kind of recklessness that you'd be willing to put someone's name out there. You're going to draw international attention to them, and you didn't even bother to check with her or even look in the dictionary to see what this meant.
When I got into the profession of journalism, there was an adage: get it first, but first get it right. And today, too often in politics and in media, reporters are just as guilty as this. It's get it first and hope it's right. And I think in this case, the congressman should have done 5 minutes of extra work. Check the dictionary spelling, call the women, do a pre-interview. There's no harm in that. You're not only making a political point, you're informing the American public, and in this case, there seems to be a clear misinformation that was passed along on one of the biggest stages in the world, and in a trial that our founding fathers intended to be a really big moment. Impeachment isn't we're not putting a name on a post office today. It's a big deal. To be that wrong, it's harmful to the process. It's an insult to the institution. I've heard from senators already. I've heard some from members of Congress. This is a little story that I think is going to have some big impact.
Well, I think it has tremendous impact because oftentimes there are these small moments that come to define a larger moment in American history. Yeah. This was an extraordinarily quick impeachment, the fastest in American history. Took over a month for them to impeach President Clinton, for example.
That's right.
And this was done so quickly, and I think a lot of people felt like the process itself was not befitting the dignity of the office of the President of the United States. And now it appears that we have a moment where people who came to pray were being accused of coming armed on horseback to the Capitol. Yeah. Well, folks, it's a pleasure being here in David Brody's seat on the water cooler. Make sure you go to justthenews.com right now. Check out this story about the impeachment blunder. Send it to all of your friends and go to the podcast John Solomon Reports. When we come back, we're going to be talking with the pastor at the center of this episode. We'll be back in a minute.